Right,
Steady on, Susie.
Remember hope.
You get up every day and you never know what the tide's going to bring in. No, most of the time it's condoms and jobbies.
They both had their heart issues, and I just turned into the big man. I went, mate, I don't know if my insurance is going to cover us for the next 3 nights.
And they took all the jobbies and the condoms out further into the 54th. And, you know, they disgorged it there. And that's how Kirkcaldy was formed.
Cool. My name is Susie McCabe. I'm a stand-up comedian, podcaster and writer, and I am sat here in the beautiful Stand Comedy Club with the wonderful and talented Mr. Raymond Mearns.
And I'm Raymond Mearns, and I was just passing by. And do you know what? Nobody's turned up. You might come in here and talk to Susie, just as well I know her. So this is comedians own comedians. I'm not so sure about that. Well, sounds like a sex film.
It does.
It's comedians talking to comedians, which, because it's on film, is not quite as compelling as what happens when it's a film, is comedians talking about other comedians and giving them...
Aye, pelters. I tell you about who I seen die at the weekend.
Their ears must be burning.
Aye.
Right? And so, now I'd pay money to see that. But what you're getting... We're going to talk about... What are we going to talk about? I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're going to see what's happening. We're going to have a conversation, which for two completely self-absorbed people is going to be really difficult.
We are in possibly one of the greatest comedy clubs there's ever been.
I used to refer to this place, and I know it's a bit of a kind of sad old trope, but this has always been my theatre of dreams.
Aye, I get it. It's always been my comedy home, this club, and it's funny because when I started, I actually played Edinburgh more, but I remember getting my first weekend in here. Mark Nelson was the headliner, and Bruce Devlin was the host, and I think it was the Golden Jubilee weekend, so you got the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, aye.
Oh, the Queen?
Aye. And
Right.
so you were in for the full lot, and because everybody had days off, because remember the country had money. So they would say, oh, here's a Jubilee, take a day off your work, right?
Aye.
And
not a joke for years, so
well,
I wouldn't know about it.
And it was rammed all weekend.
In fact, they made me go to work that day.
Well, here,
everybody else was after work.
Aye.
For the Queen. So Her Majesty, she phoned me up, she went, Mearnsy. I went, what's happening, Your Majesty? She went, look, everybody's after work. They're lying, stoating about steaming. You want to come in and do a shift? I went, absolutely, Your Majesty, but... You know, I couldn't do the doctoring. I'm no mad for a sight of blood, but anything else.
I'll do it. I'll tell the jokes. So I came in here, that was my first weekend in here. And I'd only ever done one red robe. I'd been gigging for 18 months. And it was actually the late Janie Godley. I gave a lift to a gig. And Janie had said, how are you getting on at the stand? And I went, I can't get in. And she went, what do you mean? I says, I can't get a red robe.
Janie, she was great because she broke in.
Aye.
And
Aye.
Got you in where?
And she
jammied that door.
She emailed Tommy and Eva at that moment in time.
She jammied Tommy.
And Jamie Tommy got me the gig. It got me my tryout spot. And then she phoned Tommy the next day and I got a whole raft of gigs, including my first weekend. But this is where I've done solo shows and work in progresses and everything. It just feels like home.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember much about the gigs. I just remember the odd lock-in.
They were the days.
We don't need to edit that bit.
It's just iconic though, isn't it? It's iconic.
I remember getting home to my first wife, and it was in the summertime. It must have been June or July, and I remember just getting steaming and coming out of here at like 6 in the morning in the beautiful blazing sun. And I was blazing drunk.
Amazing.
And I remember getting home to my wife, and she was just getting out of bed. And I went, that's me in, honey. And I just jumped into my scratcher. You know, it's a wonderful life being a comedian.
Oh, I remember. So I was a comedian. I was gigging for 8.5 years, but I was still working. And I still had a full-time job. So I was an electrical estimator. And I was balancing the two. And I was like selling out solo shows in here for the festival. And I was starting to kind of headline round about the country and get MC spots and all that. And I remember when I went full time. It was a couple of weeks after I'd went full time, and I was driving down the motorway. I was coming down for Coatbridge. I was driving down the M8, and I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, what day is it?" And it was a Friday, and I thought, "You've made it," because you don't know it's Friday, because when you work for a living, you always know when it's Friday. And that's when you know you've made, because you always know when it's Friday, and you always know when it's Monday, and you always know when it's Sunday night when you have a job. Even if you've got a job that you absolutely love, you always know when it's Friday. Whereas I was just like, oh, it's Friday, because it's just another day now. It's no that, yes, it's Friday, we're getting bacon rolls and the work and we're finishing early. It's just a Friday. And I thought
I'm
that's
going to
when I
have
knew.
to revise my how I feel about my history, because clearly I made it years ago.
Clearly.
Because I don't know what day it is. So that's amazing. Thanks for that, Susie.
Aye.
Apparently I made it a long time ago.
That's it. That's it. It's when you don't have that Sunday night dread. And I
I used to hate that sinking feeling.
Aye.
And even what's his name? Even wee Bobby Ball being on Songs of Praise couldn't cheer me up on Sunday. Oh man!
Sunday night at the Palladium.
Well, I used to present Songs of Praise. Remember Bobby Ball? And that Sunday, Friday's a great day when you're working. Friday's always great. You're at Friday. Well, nobody does any working Friday afternoon. Right, Friday lunchtime, you coast through to lunch, and then you go, right, you go, what you doing tonight? You do, I'm going to get a fillet, right? Because everyone's going to get a fillet, right? And you, what are you doing? I'm going to get a fillet more than you. Right, good, blah, blah, blah. And Friday's always great, just out of work. Yes! Everybody pouring out their offices, man.
Aye.
Ripping their suits off.
Straight to the boozer. And you know, like that, I think that's when you know, because I think this is genuinely like the best job in the world. Like, I don't care what you do for a living. This, for me, is my best job in the world. And the fact that you can get people to pay money to see you, especially as an individual for a solo show, whether that be Edinburgh, Kings, whatever, I think that is the greatest compliment that you can have. Because see, and a lot of comedians forget this, I think, especially a lot of comedians that haven't worked like long-term and long kind of jobs, right? Me and you have both worked in very set careers and made a shift into comedy, right? Whereas a lot of people didn't really have a career and then they just kind of stumbled into it.
I think they're really lucky.
Oh, aye, 100%.
Never having a grafted, ever.
Oh, aye. 100%.
Never having done a shift.
Oh, aye, very soft hands. Very soft hands.
Well, I've got very soft hands.
I have now.
Well, you were a wee sparky.
Aye.
I mean, feel them. I mean, if anything fairy liquid would damage the horns. Look at these.
I think there's a thing where, as a comedian, and we do lose sight of this sometimes, that when you're doing a gig, you are the cheapest part of somebody's night. Even if you're in like the Kings or the Armadillo or whatever, you're the cheapest part of somebody's night, because they've maybe went out for dinner, got a babysitter, getting a taxi home, bought drinks. You add all that up, and that'll be more than the cost of your ticket.
I find my punters walk.
No.
and they bring a packed lunch.
A tartan blanket.
You make pieces, and they go like that. They see it's their man. You couldn't use it running to town, could you?
A tartan blanket, and it's an afternoon show.
One of the big tartan flasks. Yeah. What are you doing now? We're going to see Mearns and they bought how much the tickets? £6. He's overcharged.
Aye, concession, £4. Pensioners' concession. But you
I get what you mean. They're making a night. Absolutely.
And you're the cheapest part of the night, but you're with the whole.
But you're the focus. You're absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody goes, that was a lovely dinner. I've overate. I need to spew. I'll go and see Mearnsy.
They might.
Aye, because you don't want to put your fingers down your throat.
No. But it is, and I think if you can pay bills and live your life by earning money, telling jokes and
doing
making
something you
people
love.
laugh.
Now that's the ultimate. Whatever that is, if you're doing something, if you're making a living doing something that under other circumstances you would do free of charge, and don't quote me on this, right? that's because you do stuff for pleasure. Imagine if you're into jigsaws, right? If you're into jigsaws, don't come anywhere near me, you boring bastard.
On me.
But sorry, I'll keep it in. Right, if you do jigsaws, imagine you could get paid to do jigsaws.
Aye.
Now, off the top of my head, I can't imagine anybody mental enough to pay for somebody to do jigsaws. But then again, they're paying a guy to run America. Who's anyway? But imagine you do things for pleasure. Imagine you could get paid for having a chug.
Imagine you could get paid for going to the football. Do you know what I mean? It's
I
like
know.
it's like that. It's the
I
closest.
forgot the football.
It's the closest.
Well, as you know,
As I know, might not be the greatest experience.
as
for
you know, Annie and I, my lovely wife, we go and watch Motherwell.
Well, hold on. I'm just going to discuss this, right? Because Raymond wasn't always a Motherwell fan, right? He's a boy for the East End of Glasgow, but Raymond met his second wife, who's one of the most beautiful human
awesome.
beings you could
She's
ever
brilliant.
meet. But she radicalised him.
I have been radicalised.
Radicalised him into supporting Motherwell, and that's a fucking shift.
I
innit?
know.
That's
I
a
know.
shift.
Talk about being a suicide bomber, man. I'm at the end of that, I was 72 virgins await me.
I wouldn't have told you it's guys, but anyway, that's another thing.
Hey, this is 21st century. I'm curious.
It's going to be good for a girl like you. When did you first realise you were funny?
When I went into my boss and asked him for a pay rise, and he laughed me out of his office. I tell you when, I think it's very similar to some other stories I'd read. See, when you're a kid and you're at school, and me and my brothers, and we were all, our mother was very kind of mollycoddled us a lot, and we were soft wains because we're coming for East End. Oh, you're in with all the lions and the tigers, and lions and tigers and bears, and we were voles or something, right? And we were just, so you get battered. I couldn't fight sleep, right? That's why I look like this now, right? It's a defence mechanism, and what happens is to not get battered or to get people to like you or leave you alone, you would make them laugh.
Aye.
You would divert them, deflect them. And this would maybe first, second year at school. So about 13, 14-year-old. Funny, it coincided with puberty. My hilarity and my puberty came at the same time.
Parallel lines.
It was absolutely. And I just always remember, fear your own shadow. So, and you just say things, and instead of, and the humour can do that. Humour can stop somebody in their tracks. And I always remember just saying something, and people would just go, "Oh, Mearnsy, you're funny." And they go, "Man, it's like you're the court jester. You're the fool in the king's court or something." So that's where it happened for me.
And that's the funny bones thing, and I always remember you talking to me about this, going, Susie, you've got funny bones, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And you're like, well, there's comedians that come out that have a structured set, and they've worked out that A plus B will give you C, and there's your punchline.
Aye.
Anyways, but you, Scott Agnew, Janie, it's that funny bones thing where you can react to something in a room and make it funny.
Well, I remember meeting Jerry Sadovic's manager out in the Citizens Theatre, and I borrowed a line from, I think it was Milton Berle, the American comedian. And so Sadovic's manager said to me, we'd introduced somebody, mutual friend, and he says, "So you're a stand-up?" I says, "No, I'm a comedian." And he looked at me kind of quizzically, and he went, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, stand-ups say funny things. Comedians say things funny. So that's by the same token you're saying A plus B equals C." I've no idea what that means, but it's the essence of who you are.
Aye.
It just comes out of you, it flows out of you.
We were
you
in
don't
a-
even know what you're doing.
We were in Australia and we were sitting. Remember the Johnny Walker Double Black?
Well, it's Johnny Walker Black Label.
Johnny Walker Black
Aye,
Label. But
Johnny Walker Black Label. Double Black is a peated version of the
aye,
Johnny Walker
so
Black Label.
remember they had it for $6 in that wee Asian place, and then we had a barbecue, and then
That's
you
right.
went. Raymond, Raymond came back to the barbecue with a bag full of miniatures of Johnny Walker Double Black. And I went, it'd have been cheaper to get a bottle. And Raymond's theory was, oh, Susie, you couldn't get a bottle because we would have drank it all.
Aye.
Right,
Susie,
okay.
that's alcoholism.
So, and I remember you sitting saying to me, you need to relax about your career. Your career's going to be fine. You're fine. You're funny. You've got funny, but you're fine. And you went, do you know why? Because it's your truth. It's the essence of you on a stage. I'll never forget this conversation. It's the essence of you on a stage, and it's your truth. And that's what makes you funny. And I feel that sometimes you watch a lot of kind of younger comedians, or not even so much younger, people kind of newer to comedy, and you can see what they've done is they've read a book on how to write a punchline, how to write if I do this setup, there's my punchline. You know what I mean? Whereas, and it's not really that kind of natural. Like, for example, I was doing a gig the other week with Scott Agnew, and in the room that we were in, they had a wee spotlight, and it was just a wee makeshift venue. And they had a wee spotlight and it kept going off. And as Scott was on stage, the light went off, right? And Scott's 6'5", he's a big boy, as we all know, right? And Scott just turned into the audience who could not see him because it was pitch black and just went, this is like the war, we'll meet again. Do you know what I mean? Just instantly just knew what to do. And the whole place was roaring. And then the light came back on and he'd done about 5-6 minutes on the light being off.
Yeah.
Just like that, unprepared.
Because what you're doing is that some people would be confronted with a disaster, as they would see it.
And freeze.
The mic would fail, the light fails, I don't know. But what Scott did is what I think good comedians would do. They would use anything that happened to their advantage.
Always.
Rather than going, well, right, when we get this light back on,
Aye.
and then the whole thing's, then you lose all that energy. So we all kind of come out of that same...
Absolutely.
We come from that same space. But that's experience, Susie.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I've noticed this. So you see a lot of younger comedians, and it's great. So many people see comedy as a career now. I never saw it as a career. I think, you see, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a guitar player. Right. I was a decent guitar player. I can play the guitar better than the average Joe, but I know professional guitar players are phenomenal. You just shred my arse, right? And so, a guitar player, a musician, and an actor. I did a bit of acting at university. You kind of fall into comedy, kind of, because you've failed at the other two things. That's what that was my experience. You tried this and you tried that, and you combine all these things and you become the essence of what you are. And then you start doing comedy and you've not got a clue what you're doing.
No.
Right? Fear drives you. Fear. It's absolute fear on stage.
100%.
So-
See the fear of failure.
Oh, man.
You know, like if you're and I've seen it in here, I've been sat in here, and I like coming
It's
through,
brilliant, isn't it?
And
You see them shiting themselves.
I come backstage and you're sitting, you say to me, open spot, how do you think that went? And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. But I've seen it in here where we've all been backstage and there's silence, a prolonged silence, there's no laughter.
know.
And I've seen comedians run out to watch a comedian die, whereas here,
right.
I can't watch it. I'm like that, no.
No, because the guy is dying, the person that's dying, they need a bit of laughter. Because the curious thing is, see when a comedian's dying, right, absolutely dying on stage.
Awful.
And there's 200 people in here, and they're all, and the audience is sitting, looking at the person, and they're all going, right? The only people laughing are the 3 comedians up the back who think this is hilarious. No, for evil reasons, by the way, because there's a respect, there's always a respect, but we've all been there.
Oh, every
We've
single
all
one is.
been there. We've all absolutely died in front of an audience. And It's horrible.
It's horrendous.
It's horrible when it happens.
And I can't watch it. It's a bit like watching somebody you love die, in the sense that it suddenly reminds you of your own mortality. And I just can't watch a death on a stage unless I have to, because I'm the MC.
I tend to video it. I'll video it.
Send it around all the group chats. Wait till you see this.
Because I've had it done to me. I've had it done to me, man. People talking about you.
That's interesting that you talk about wanting to be a musician and stuff, because I never had that. The arts. Right, so I came from the same area that you live in, which is a nice, as Christopher MacArthur Boyd describes it, because he's from there, is a nice bit of a shite bit, right?
Aye.
Right? But the arts, like, my dad was a spark, my mum was a dinner lady, then she was a home help. So as much as what I grew up in a really nice area, I never felt that the arts were open to me. Because if I had went in and said to my parents, listen, I'm going to go and go into the arts, they'd have been like, well, that's great on a Saturday morning, but that's not for you. You need to go and get a job. And I even remember saying to my parents, I remember saying to my parents, I was right into sport when I was growing up, and I remember saying to them, I want to go and study sports science, physiology, and this course had just came in at Glasgow Uni, and they were like, what's that? And I was like, well, because I was playing rugby, playing football, I was playing badminton, I was like really, really fit, and I was like playing sports 7 days a week, or training, or both. And I remember them going, oh, university's not for you. University's not for the likes of you. So if that was their attitude to university, the absolute notion of me getting into the arts was just not an option. Like, we never even went to the theatre. I think the first time I went to the theatre, it was the King's Theatre, and I took my nana, and it was to see the Steamy. And then the second time I went to the theatre, I went with my then girlfriend's family to see like a musical or something. So I didn't go to Panto. I didn't get any of that. None of that happened. The idea of being in a school show was just no.
So given all that, how are you here? What happened?
So I had a pal. Her name was Maz Carruthers, and Maz was away travelling, and she came back. She got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. A couple of weeks later, Paul's through at mine with a curry and beers, and he's like, here, wait, life is short. Now, bear in mind, this was like 2010. So for those of you that are watching this that don't remember 2010, let me explain. The Tories had just got in. We were still quite a nice country. We had money. We used to do a thing called a child trust fund, where we would put money into a newborn's account as a country. We looked after our pensioners, or that we didn't starve people. We didn't have thousands upon thousands of food banks, right? It was a different time. It was a time when we had a thing called hope. So, right, remember hope. Listen, you've got a whole generation's adults now that have only just grown up with chaos, but that's another story. So, Paul went, life's all right, and considering I grew up in the 1980s, and it was quite a turbulent political time. There was a lot of change. There was a lot of employment growing up in the Central Belt, going to school in Lanarkshire and all that. And Paul went, look, compared to the time that we grew up in, this is easy, innit? This is all right. And I was like, aye, the world seems quite a settled place. And then he went, we should do something to scare ourselves. And I went, all right. He goes, you can do this comedy course at Strathclyde University, lifelong learning with Viv G.
Right.
And I was like, all right. So this is like 3 a.m, curry, a case of lager in. Woke up the next morning, he's standing with a cup of coffee in my living room, and he's like, do you mind what you agreed to last night? And I was like, you write the cheque, I'll do the bank transfer, right? He's like, right, no bother. So it now became a bit of a dare, right? You can't lose face. At which point, my then girlfriend, who became my first wife, came into the kitchen and went, what's this? We told her what we were doing, and I swear to God, Raymond, she looked at me and she went, do you think you'll make people laugh? And I thought, Jesus Christ, if you're with me for my face and my body, you've robbed yourself, hen. And so we went and done the course, and we didn't tell anybody. And then about 4 or 5 weeks in, told our mates, because you do the graduation gig. and we done that. And I loved going to the course, and I used to work really hard on my set and everything, and I loved it. And it was the gig eventually happened on the 18th of January, 2011. So it was 3 days before I turned 31. So I was still 30, and I done the gig. And after that gig, I went, this is what I'm meant to do. This is my thing. I just suddenly had just found my thing. And I was like, this is what I want
That's
to
a
do.
real kind of that's a real kind of Saul on the road to Damascus kind of idea, because it's almost like instantaneous. Because I always, when I was a kid, I always kind of knew I was going to be like an entertainer or an actor or something, because that's what I always wanted to be. I used to listen to remember we had the single Brick in the Wall?
Yes,
which
yes.
I came out in the 70s or something. I used to listen to this on a record player, and I heard that Dave Gilmour's guitar solo, right? And I went, oh, I can imagine me playing the guitar on stage in a spotlight, and I always wanted to be a musician. Now, at the same time, Billy Connolly became really big in the 70s, and my dad had all these records.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the Crucifixion and the Jobby Weaker and all that,
Aye.
right? And my old man would put these LPs on the record player, and here's a guy that talks like us, talking about things that we know about. We know this pub, the Sarry Heed and all that, and just up for the cross, and it was hilarious. It was
Aye.
amazing. And so that was always, to me, I never understood that comedy could be a thing. So it was always a musician. And I had a band, me and my wee brother and a couple of mates had a band, and we were doing my thing, and then I was at uni and doing some acting. And to her credit, my first wife, it was around about 1991, 92, she said to me, I used to go to parties with my guitar and all that, and do all Billy Connolly
You're that guy in the
routines.
kitchen, man, ain't he? He's that guy in the kitchen.
Yeah.
4 in the morning,
No, not in the
everybody's...
kitchen, in the living room.
Everybody else went into the kitchen. Everybody else is like, fuck this. In the kitchen.
I know, I never did such a big crowd since. But the point is, so I would sing songs and tell stories and all stuff I'd ripped off and stuff I'd heard, and maybe the odd thing about myself and give somebody a slagging. And to her credit, my first wife says, people would pay you for that. You could make a living doing comedy. And so I did an open spot in Blackfriars.
All right, aye. Great room, great comedy room.
Way back. And Craig Ferguson was there that night. Parrott was there. Another couple of people, a guy called Alec Frackleton that used to be on the circuit, and a lassie called Jill Peacock.
No, Jill Peacock, aye.
And that's who was there. That was the very, very first night. And I turned up with a kind of paisley pattern waistcoat and a pair of cords on.
What a dandy.
Well, clearly I've never upped the ante.
What a dandy. Come in.
And it went well. And I don't know, there's some crap about, I don't know, Wallace Mercer wanting to pump fat on my whitbread or something. I don't even remember. I remember, it doesn't matter. But it went well. And then I kind of went for there.
Aye, I was the same. Viv gave me my first gig the following week, like actual gig out with the class, which was in the Griffin. In the wee back room at the Griffin. And then for there, I would just apply for anything and get gigs. And I would listen, I would sit in the back of the cars, or I'd be driving, and I would just be like asking for advice and just trying to absorb it all in, man. Know what I mean? Just sitting there.
That's another thing. It's like, I remember years ago, so you would be doing a gig, you'd be somewhere down in the Borders or something, and you'd be the driver. And it's nice being the driver, because then you'd drop, there's the three comedians in the motor. And you always wanted to be last to be dropped off.
Just to make sure you weren't getting spoken about.
That's funny, man.
I was doing 3 nights with, again, Big Scott, and me and Scott have obviously both had our heart issues, and I just turned into the big man. I went, mate, I don't know if my insurance is going to cover us for the next 3 nights. But I think the fact that I just never really believed, but my brother's 8 years older than me, and he's like that. Now, I used to come in for school, and before I was like 4, we lived up in Thornbridge Road in Garrahill before we moved into the Glasgow Road. And my brother said he would come in for school, like 10 years old, and he goes, there would be you with Nana and Mum putting on a show and entertaining them. And he was like, you were
Right.
always funny.
When you were a toddler?
A wee toddler, like, and you were always funny. And at school, I was funny, and I kind of got on with everybody. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't a bad Wayne or anything like that at school. Teachers, if you're watching this, there's no need to make any comment about that. But I was one of the Waynes that the teacher would pull their
Teachers,
hair out.
if you're watching, I'm amazed you're still alive.
But they would be like, they kind of knew I was funny. I was a wee jester. Know what I mean? I was funny, and I had a wee glint in my eye, but I was never bad. I was never malicious. You know what I mean? But I feel that if I had maybe been encouraged to go into the arts, because like I grew up watching like Rab C, right?
Nobody is working classes encouraged to get into
No, not even by the arts.
Yeah.
Like watching Rab C, watching Elaine C. Smith, and my Auntie Rena come round going, Auntie Rena, you know, just pure Mary doll and do impressions there, do you know what I mean? And they would all just be killing themselves. And I was maybe about 9, 10, you know, so I think, if only I'd chosen a bit of a different path. But you know what? Sometimes you need to just follow the path that's been laid out for you, and it'll take you to where you're meant to be.
I mean, I think it's a sad thing in that, see, in the 60s, there was all these,
Black and white televisions.
no, all these actors that came through that were all working class, people like Tom Courtenay and Albert Finney and all these working class guys, and Michael Caine and all that, and Terry Stamp and people like that. And the
Even
same way,
people like Julie Walters.
same way, I know, same so in the 60s, 70s, up into the 80s, and you Gregor Fisher and Elaine C. Smith and Tony Roper, they're no posh punters, they're punters like us. But something happened in the 80s and the 90s where,
Thatcherism.
well,
Every time.
Aye.
Listen, I will blame that woman. I'm like the crucifixion. She freed
I know.
Barabbas, right? I'll blame her for anything. Right? But it was because we suddenly became a nation. So there's an actual fact here. This bit's incredibly boring. That between 1945 and 1979, the inequality and poverty gap in Britain had never
Narrowed.
been narrower.
Yep.
But here was the thing. Every single Prime Minister up to Thatcher had seen war. So regardless of party and regardless of class, they had lived through, possibly served Captain Anthony Eden, Alex Macmillan, blah, 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 right? All of that going on. And Thatcher didn't, because Thatcher was a young girl, not young girl, there wasn't a kid. So therefore, these people, if you look at somebody like Macmillan to Wilson, right? Both of them very different backgrounds, or Eden, right? Very, very different backgrounds, but they understood the importance of the miner from Northumbria's son being in a trench.
in 1945, you had the comprehensive education system, the National Health Service, universal for everybody. You improved outcomes in terms of health and education.
But
right?
you had to have the politicians to
So
back
that's
that.
right, that's right. So from by the time that had fed through into the 1960s, right, Britain was the centre of the universe. 1960s London.
arts,
Look at the Beatles and all that, and the
fashion.
Stones and all that. And we led the world, great film directors, great actors, all these amazing people that came out of that. If it wasn't for what the Hartley government did in 45, that would never have happened. That
Absolutely.
would never have happened under a class-based government system that merely everything went towards the upper classes or their voters, and the working class were still
But
kept
even
down.
the
So you had the rise of
Conservatives-
the working class. I think the old-style conservatives.
Small C.
Thatcher was a nouveau riche conservative. Right, all these completely changed because he dismantled completely the post-war consensus. I begun the dismantling of it.
Yeah. And that
was regressive, completely regressive step.
But that then also, there was a kind of ruse within that if you were working class but you owned a house, you were a better person, right, than your next door neighbour that was still
No, it
living
just meant you
somewhere.
couldn't go on strike.
Exactly, because 3 mortgage payments, you're out the house, so
Yeah.
you've absolutely taken the unions out at the knee. So I think, like, for me, it's just comedy is something that I've always loved as well. Like, so again, my brother, being that bit older, he used to go to the cadets in Shettleston, right?
Right.
Right. And he used to come in on a Friday night and he'd be like, do you want to come and watch Friday Night Live in my room? Because he'd a wee portable, right? Made my late grandfather's wee portable. And I'd sit there and it was Ben Elton, it was Joe Brand, right?
Nick
It was
Revel and
Harry
all that.
Enfield
Remember
and all
well.
that, Nick Revel, right? All that going on. So he'd be sitting watching it. And it was quite politicised as well. Like, but I would sit and watch Joe Brand and be like, she's like me, right? Because, you know, she was a larger lady and all that kind of thing and a bit fucking kind of unkempt looking. And that's whereas all the lassies that I went to school with were pristine, whereas I was just running about playing football. So you'd sit and I'd watch this, and then he would, like, when he went away, when he left the house, he would come home and he'd bring in like the smell of Reeves and Mortimer, and absolutely, and of course, I was always watching Spitting Image and all of these things were all part of my comedy thing. But equally, growing up, I would go up to Germiston in the Royston Road with my nana, and I would stay there all weekend when I was like under 10, 11. And I would watch things like Paul O'Grady. Do you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. Like, I remember taking my nana to see Dorothy Paul. Do you know what I mean? Because that culturally, you know, that's such a big thing, and you don't realise it at the time. And watching my nana laugh, like, heartedly, and understanding that that's comedy, and even if it was inappropriate, you still laughed. Do you know, when she was all right with you laughing, you know, because Paul O'Grady would be, you know, Paul O'Grady's Lily Savage, his drag character, when drag used to do jokes and no just lip sync, he used to be really kind of caustic and funny, and he basically played, for all intents and purposes, a smoking alcoholic sex worker who was Scouse, right? And some of the jokes would have been inappropriate, but not innuendo, not like a Carry-On film. They were just funny jokes, and you kind of knew what they were. So I think growing up with those kind of influences, and then my mum and I used to sit on a Friday night before I would go to my nana's on a Saturday, and we would watch Cheers, Roseanne, all of that kind of stuff. The Golden Girls, which I still love.
The Golden Girls are class.
The Golden Girls are class because they used to take on subjects that nobody else talked about in television. You know, there would be more. If you go back and you watch some, you'll see them sitting about talking about HIV. You'll see them sitting talking about, you know, rape. You'll see them sitting talking about kind of women's rights. And they'll make it funny, but not laugh at the subject. Really culturally important, very important.
Well, I'll need to go back and watch it.
Well, doesn't mean anything to an old...
Clearly, all that washed over me. I don't know what it was I found funny.
You were probably too busy watching Blanche Devereaux. That was probably your problem.
She was the dirty southern one.
Do you write?
I've been winging it for 30 years.
Fuck it, I've watched you too many times to
I've
think
been winging it for 30 years. What happens is, how I do it, it kind of grows organically over time. I'm lucky. I compared. So I emceed a lot of shows for years. And it's funny, when people watch you, they come up to you and go, you should be a comedian because you're quite funny. You think I'm not a comedian? Oh, you should do sets. I mean, you got to be an MC, you need to be a great comedian. I don't think it's the other way about, in my estimation. But I don't really write in the sense that I don't sit and write. I'll watch something, I'll see something, I'll observe something, and I'll go, what if that applied, or how does that apply to other situations? For instance, I've got this routine about a dog, the dog at the airport that can smell money. So the first joke is, so the dog jumped up on me, and the police is connected to the dog. And I says, no, I saw this on that airport security show.
Aye.
A dog that smells money. And I remember the dog jumped up at me, and I thought, wait a minute. And what happened was, I goes, why'd your dog jump up at me? And she went, have you got any money on you? The dog smelled your money. I went, what? My ex-wife must have trained that. Right? So, it's a great joke, right? So that's a left turn, and then I go, what else can they smell? they can smell drugs. I says, imagine you had a dog like that. You could get up your job. Right. But then, what about going down to get a dog? And it just grows arms and legs, and before you know it, it becomes a full routine.
Yeah.
So you Google, what else can dogs detect with their nose? Diseases. So it's all about dating and catching chlamydia, and the dog basically going, you've caught chlamydia, boss, but if it's any consolation, she's got £20 in a joint in her handbag. So, and that's a whole routine. Now, I don't know how long, it would maybe take me 2, 3, 4 weeks to absolutely get
it nailed.
And what I'm doing, I'm trying it all out on stage as I
Aye,
go along. And I just add to it and add to it. And that's how my thing occurs. It becomes incredibly complex and ornate. And now, so I've got a wee book which is just one line. And it's it might be sniffer dogs. It's one line, and that's a whole routine.
Yes.
And that's how I do it. I've never written in. I've done stuff for the BBC, and they go, we need a script, and I'm going, it's all in here, mate. Aye. Oh, we need something off you.
Aye. So I think because I done the wee comedy course, I kind of learned how to write, and I actually love writing a show. I simultaneously love and hate it at the same time, because it's the best and worst part of the job, because it's the way I do it is I'll come up with a title, and I've kind of got an arc, and I know what I want to talk about. So I done a show about, it was called Femme Fatality, and it was about being a failure as a woman, right? How I felt a failure. And I literally took it from the minute I was born, right? And I said,
right, like, long show.
Even the doctor.
That's an epic.
I am Spartacus. And it was even like arriving into the world and the doctor going, oh, Mrs. McCabe, you've gave birth to a lovely wee lesbian, Mrs. McCabe, lesbian, right? And then kind of talking about growing up at a time and knowing that I was gay from a pretty young age. And then, I didn't really see gay women in TV then. When you did see gays in TV, and I kind of, the kind of sociological background of when I grew up, and, EastBenders and those kind of newspaper headlines and stuff. And then I took it into kind of my relationships, then took it into kind of working on building sites, I said the guys were really excited, they were getting a woman in sight, and then I turned up, you know what I mean? For the first 3 months, they called me son. One guy called me Stevie, still calls me Stevie. I actually named his first child Stevie, right? Do you know what I mean? So it just, and that kind of stuff, and then talking about building sites and kind of showing the stupidity of when you're a woman in a building site. But it's not because these men are bad men, because these men are the brothers, the husbands, the sons of the women in your audience. It's about showing the kind of stupidity acts, like a boy coming onto the site with a baguette and everybody going, is that you a hairdresser now? And then my joke would be, it was me that said that. So you would kind of think it was blatant homophobia for all these guys, but it's actually me just doing that. And I love an arc, and I love a point, because last year's show finished on a monologue, because it was in the way that it kind of finished, and it had a big massive picture. It's basically a picture of me taking an illegal picture out at the House of Commons with the chamber behind me, empty, with the empty chamber and the mace removed. But that, and it was about kind of being a bit, when you find yourself with a wee bit of success, you find yourself in places you never thought you'd be, and you're mixing with people and that you never thought you would ever kind of be in and around their company. Do you know what I mean? People that maybe hold high office, or other comedians that you've looked up to, and all that kind of stuff. And I love that. But I think I like to do that because I feel that as a mid-40s gay woman who has grown up in the west coast of Scotland, I maybe, in my eyes, and I don't think that I'm just, trying to preach to the converted, but I think it's important to try and say, no, actually, this is what it was like, and this is how it is, and I've actually got something to say about this, because I should, and I want to. Do you know what I mean? You've got a platform, use it. Women have came in front of you like Janie. If Janie hadn't done Janie's job, I probably wouldn't have had the success because she kind of smoothed that path in the same way that Elaine C. Smith smoothed that path for Janie, in the same way Dorothy Paul. Right, so sometimes you've just got to go, I need to step up to the plate here, because look at these greats, and I'm going to make a point of saying something. I'm going to try and open doors for me. I'm going to kick the door in, but I'm going to make sure that that door's left open for somebody else as well. So that's why I try and do a show that's about a something, and it's about an arc, and it's about all of that. So aye, for me, but I love writing it, and I love then starting to go back through and finding your callbacks, you know. Like, I love the tie-ins. I love being
it's
able to do all
exhausting,
that.
Susie.
I love it. I love all that. But I love to just go,
I
that
know,
was
I
the
get
bit.
it.
Know what I mean?
But that's probably why you're successful. It was never been my thing.
No, I'm not particularly looking to go and sell out a 12,000-seater arena.
Right, no, but you'll end up doing that.
No.
You never know. You never know what's in front.
It's not enough
in this
lesbians to
business.
fill it, Raymond.
No.
And see if
in
there
the
is,
words
where
of
have they
Tom
been?
Hanks, in the words of Tom Hanks, you get up every day and you never know what the tide's going to bring in. No, most of the time it's condoms and jobbies, but you never know what the tide's going to bring in. So, Tom Hanks never said that.
Have you never thought about writing for Hallmark, Raymond? Maybe the wee messages in
You
the
know
card.
what? I keep sending them stuff, and it gets returned.
Fucking condoms and jobbies.
Well,
Jesus.
we had a caravan at Seaton Sands
Oh,
in the 70s, and
posh.
the Edinburgh used to, exhume all their sewage raw into the Firth of Forth, and there was a sewage pipe
Aye.
on the beach
Amazing.
at Port Seaton where
The
the
sewage.
detritus of Edinburgh's arses and whatnot flowing into the Firth of Forth, and we would go swimming, but we'd tiptoe across the rocky beach and go into the water and come out like the creature for the Black Lagoon,
Jeez.
covered in whatnot. Now this is disgusting, and so Edinburgh, they built the Gardaloo, the MV Gardaloo, and they took all the jobbies and the condoms out further into the Firth of Forth, and they discarded it there, and that's how Kirkcaldy was formed. If there's anybody in for Kirkcaldy, I meant they'll get to be. If there's anybody in for get to be, I meant leaving. Oh, shut up, Buckhaven, Methil. Pick your own place.
Methil, there's a place, there's a place. Listen, I love this club and I love this room, and I love playing all the stands, to be fair. And I enjoy playing the Glee. I think it's a great club. And I actually really enjoy Blackfriars as well. But I'll never, ever, ever forget, and I will never take it for granted. So obviously, the past few years at the Comedy Festival, this will be year number 4. Is that right? Aye. Show number 4, maybe. I played the King's Theatre. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. And that was booked or announced in 2019. And obviously, I was to play it in 2020.
Yeah, it's a pandemic.
5 days before we got, 5
That's
days
right.
after we got locked down, right? So, and for 2 years, people kept their tickets, and the show was called Born Believer. And then I will never ever forget walking out onto that stage and hearing that roar for the first time, and it was rammed, it was filled with the gunnels. And honestly, it just felt like it went on forever. And every time, so I was really fortunate that the year after that I got to do a Friday, Saturday at the Kings, and then the year after that I got to do a Friday, a Saturday matinee, and a Saturday as I'm doing this year.
Phenomenal.
It's great, and I'll never ever tire of walking out into that room, and it's generally sold out, and just seeing it and just remembering how fortunate you are that you get to play a Frank Matcham theatre with your name in the door. Because I was really fortunate that Kevin asked me to support him in Glasgow at the Hydro, and asked me to support him in Aberdeen, which was a phenomenal experience. 16 nights in Glasgow, 4 nights in Aberdeen. Somebody had worked out, they reckon I'd played to 1 or 2% of the population of Scotland, right? But here's the thing, there's no my name in the door. Nobody's paid to see me. That's somebody saying, there's a lift up. It's also somebody saying, I think you're good enough to do this. And it's a great experience.
What you done the right thing. You signed with a big management agency.
I never signed with anybody before that, though. I just kept my powder dry.
Aye, but you've been with a big...
Aye.
You've been with him a while.
Aye.
Because I remember talking to your man about it up in that place, Caldy's, near us. And that was way before the pandemic.
Oh, aye, 2018. I signed with him, October 2018.
So
but
that's what you got to do in your career. You got to build bigger synergies. I've never done that.
It was the
I've
comedy
never had
festival.
an agent or a manager. I've had managers and they go, no, I've had people who've been managers and they go, you're unmanageable. and when I said, Susie's doing the Kings, can you get me in the Kings? I think it'll be great. And she says, I don't think it'll be very good with 200 people in.
Not at all. I just think it's so it was Sarah Watson in the comedy it was actually the comedy festival. So my journey through this festival has been tremendous, right? So I started off, Alan Anderson phoned me up 2012, November 2012, and he went, it's the last day of the comedy festival. Registration, have you registered? And I went, no. He went, do you want to do another show and I'll promote you? And I was like, no. I said, what was I talking? He goes, talk about getting married. So literally on that phone call, which was about 7 minutes long, we came up with the title, An Uncivil Partnership. And the picture was me outside a church with a cigarette.
No, I remember it well. Susie.
And we were going into Dram. And the first show, it sold out. And then the second one sold out. So it was like 120 people in the one night over 2 shows. And then I was supporting Dylan Moran at the Edinburgh stand, and Tommy was backstage, Tommy Shepherd, and he was furious that I hadn't came to him. And I was like, but you've got the stand. He went, no, next year you're in the stand. So it was a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, then it was a Saturday night, then it was 2 shows, and then it was the following year, the shows sold out. 2 shows sold out in a weekend.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's when Sarah Watson, who was the director of the comedy festival at the time, went, right, we're going to put you in the Kings next year. Then obviously that all went a bit buzz with the pandemic. But that is the growth. So if that had actually happened, right, if that had went ahead in 2020, in 7 years, I would have went for a 60-seater to the King's Theatre. And that's what the comedy festival can do if you are building up your audience, doing gigs. And that's what it can do. In 2018, at the end of 2018, I signed with my management. Oh, actually, it was announced 2019, but at the end of 2018. And but obviously, the festival had still booked in that gig, so I was still kind of with management, but not really. But yeah, but at that point, I'd done the Fringe once, twice, and I went, right, this is no use. I'm just going to go on tour. So I toured 2 shows over 2 years, and then I went back to the Fringe, and I'd built up the audience. And then the same things happened in Edinburgh, where it's went from a 40-seater to a 75 to a 195, 195, 250. Who knows where we'll be this year? I know, but I can't tell you.
Well, do you know where you're?
Aye. I'll tell you
How can you not say?
Because it's still up in the air, but there's a wee issue, but it's a belter, but it's a doozy. I mean, no pressure. But
Who?
Yeah.
No, I'm the only person called me. Just Google my name, you'll find out what I'm doing. So I remember Big Warren Paul said to me, that's a guy who's the corporate booker down in Glasgow.
Oh, yeah.
Paramount, whatever, I don't know. And so he gives you really good gigs. Like you work for him, great money. And he says, I was doing a gig for him one night, and I'd known him for a while. And he said, you said the coolest thing ever to me one night. And I went, I'm going, did I? He says, aye. And this gives you an indication of why Susie is doing what Susie does and I do what I do. And I says, what was it I said to you? He says, I asked you for a business card. And you said, I'm the only C word called me. If you want me, you'll come and find me. So, be professional, people. If I exist in any form whatsoever, it's kind of like a wee comedy life coach. See if you think you're doing badly, have a look at me and
you're not doing badly. You're not doing badly at all.
So, I'm in loads of shit. I'm doing my solo show here at the Stand. If it's not sold out already, it's selling really well. And then I do a comedy workshop for a charity out in Lanarkshire. So come and see Raymond Mearns full-on comedy crew. And all the profits go back into the charity, who are a charity that tries to look after people's mental health and well-being through the arts. I'm also doing 3 shows, Raymond Mearns Festival Friends, a pick of the festival at Cathcart Bowling Club for the free Fridays of the festival. And I'm also doing Glasgow.
Yes.
With Stuart Mitchell up at Barra's Art and Design.
Brilliant room.
Don't ask me the dates. I don't know the dates. You'll need to Google it. It's on the Comedy Festival website. There's no 2 Raymond Mearnses. If you see 4 shows with my name on it, it's all me. It's all me. She sells at the Kings. I need to run about like a blue ass fly to make that kind of wedge. All right. I'm also doing... Oh, aye. I'm also doing a play, that's right. I'm doing Celtic Daz. Not to be confused with Glasgow. Glasgow is just a...
You.
Well, it's an old bigot.
It's just you.
It's just me with a hat and glasses on. Celtic Daz has been written by the fantastic Phil Differ and stars Bruce Morton, and I'll be there to make up the numbers. Bruce Morton's a tall, erudite guy. I'm the wee fat fanny.
This literally was my nickname at school.
Aye.
I am at the King's Theatre with my brand new show, Best Behaviour, and that is Friday 28th of March, Saturday the 29th. Now, here's the thing with the Saturday. I understand that I have got a very varied audience. So, we've got a matinee, 5 p.m, bring your ma, bring your granny. It's near Mother's Day. They'll be delighted with a wee day out at the theatre. The mums, grannies love me. And then we've got the 8:30 show. It's all the same show. It's not like there's a later one that's a bit more dodgy. It's not. I would love it to come. The tickets have sold really, really well. So if you are looking, jump on and get them. And I've also got my live podcast, which I do with Christopher MacArthur Boyd and Frankie Boyle. If you want to see a middle-aged lesbian trying to keep a man in his early 50s and a man in his early 30s in line, come down. It's the Armadillo. I think it's actually nearly sold out as well. So jump on. It's a really good laugh. It'll be utter chaos. No doubt we'll be in the papers at some point. But come down, have a laugh. It'll be good to see you. And do you know what? See, even if you don't come and see me or Mearnsy, go out and see comedy. Go out and see comedy. The festival always tries to keep tickets pretty reasonably priced. There's options at my shows for a cheaper ticket. If you're happy to sit somewhere else, batter in, because
out the street,
out the street, just put your ear to the stage door.
Sit round by the bench.
I'll give you a recording. But listen, there's loads of shows and they're really reasonably priced. So if you're thinking you're a bit skint, there's stuff there. Plus, if you're not from Glasgow and you're watching this, go to the festival website. Here's another thing you can get: discounted hotels at really decent hotels. Do that. So get yourself
really?
Aye.
Through the what?
Through the festival website. You can then go and book your hotel and you've got
Sorry, that was terrible. I just lifted it.
Mearnsy, I think we're back in the building.